Hi ghosts and goblins, and welcome back. Today is a very special video. Not only is it my birthday today, but my best friend surprised me with a trip to the Queen Mary. Oh my goodness! So we are doing a ghost tour here out at the Queen Mary. Queen Mary is located in Long Beach, California. They just opened their operations for tours on April 1st, and they resumed the ghost tours. They haven't resumed their investigation or paranormal tour, but we're just doing the normal ghost tour. So I'm so excited, you guys. Have been wanting to do this for a very long time. And then just so you guys know, the Queen Mary is supposed to be one of the most haunted ships in the entire world. So I'm excited. I'm gonna stop talking just because my excitement is like beyond. But all right, guys, let's go. All right, let's get spooky. All right, and here she is, the beautiful Queen Mary. The Queen Mary has been down for some construction during COVID time. To make a long story short, the owners, or I don't even know who's involved with the Queen Mary, they didn't keep up to date with like the maintenance on it. So this ship was about to be sunken. But I don't know if it was the city of Long Beach or like some investors that came through that decided to put the money to get her fixed. So I know there's a lot of things that are still getting worked on, a lot of tours that can't be happening yet because of that. But she is so pretty, and like I said, she is listed to be the most haunted ship in the world. I've actually been at the Queen Mary before. I used to do I think it was called Dark Harbor, which is a Halloween event. I used to do maces inside of the ship. So I'm familiar with the ship, but it's been a very long time that I've been here. But there she is. Our tour starts in about 10 minutes, so we're gonna go ahead and check in right now. Yeah. Alright, so we made it to the 4th floor. We're on our way to our tour. And you can see here they have work beams on there. And this is the entryway.
Found a young woman sitting in a chair, 1940s dress. Now, they didn't think much of it, except she's just a guest. She's probably not doing anything. She's not going to interrupt us. We're not going to interrupt her. 5 minutes pass of just setting up. She's still sitting there, not even saying a word. The manager then walks in, and she then starts questioning the two employees who the young woman is and why they didn't ask her to leave. And both employees just responded with, oh. She was here when we came in. She wasn't interrupting us. So the manager walks up to the young girl and starts kind of trying to get her attention, waving her hands, saying, hey, come on, let's go. You gotta leave. No response. A few more minutes of this, trying to get her attention to get her to leave this room, and to no avail. She walks to the telephone to call security to have her forcefully escorted out. At the moment she lifts the telephone up to her ear, all three employees now report the same thing. The young woman stands up, looks around, and vanishes along with the chair. This apparition lasted about 10 minutes, which is the longest ever recorded on board the ship today. So right as we walk around the ship, you might catch a few things on your camera, but there are two types of hauntings we have here on board the Queen Mary. There is residual haunt, where it's more of your soul, your memories, your energy is stuck on the ship and it's replaying on a loop, where your spirit can't see the outside world, but we're seeing a small glimpse of your past life. The other haunting is more of a conscious haunting. It's where the ghost knows what it's doing and it's purposely doing it to mess with you. That's actually what you see in Hollywood a lot. It gives the whole conjuring horror and all these nice, fun horror movies I love to watch are all just conscious hauntings. Now, folks, take a few moments to walk around, take a few pictures. We'll be heading out shortly. A few years ago, one of our security guards was walking down M deck, the hallway you will be walking down shortly. Around midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, he was on his phone like a good employee, just texting away, making sure everything was safe, when he noticed a young kid was walking towards him. Now, this was strange because, again, it was 2 in the morning. So as he looked up, getting ready to put his phone away, and asked the kid where his parents was, he then noticed something was off. The kid was transparent. He didn't stop walking, it just went right through his leg. Continued. He's now a former employee. Now, folks, right this way.
Convert a key to meter. We're gonna turn up.
Upon arriving and passing through Pi M119, she then gets a very strong sense of cigar smoke coming through. It's important to note these rooms were non-smoking. So she made her presence known, knocking, to tell anyone who was in that room to not smoke and put it out. No answer. One more time, still no answer. So now she forcefully makes her way in with her key, makes her presence known, housekeeping. As upon entry, she then sees a portly gentleman sitting in a chair, smoking a cigar, relaxing the afternoon away. She walks up to the gentleman and kind of just asks him politely, "Sir, can you put the cigarette out?" Well, just her presence alone actually startled him. He got up, kind of looked at her, took one puff of the cigar and vanished into the painting that it is of Winston Churchill. Now, Winston Churchill was a passenger on board the Queen Mary about 5 times during the war, since that was his mobile war office. There were several times where he planned a lot of logistical challenges, battles, and victories were all done here on the ship. Basically, Air Force One at sea. He also stayed another handful of times after the war as just a regular passenger in that exact same cabin. That was basically why we now name it the Churchill Suite. Nowadays, when we do reopen the hotel later this year, you too can stay in that room, and you might get a famous roommate. Right this way. Our house guests and the front desk have all reported this piano to start playing by itself. A soft melody coming from the keys as if someone's playing. The front desk also reported that the bench would just move by itself as if someone's getting ready to play. Now we don't know who is haunting the piano. We can assume it was just a former crew member, came back after he passed away for one more gig on board the Queen Mary. There's another ghost tied to this piano as well. She's not a musician, but we don't know where she came from as well. She's known as the Lady in White. Some of us have kind of concluded and created theories as to why she manifests on the Queen Mary. After the war, we were known as the Bride and Baby Shuttle. We carried thousands of women and their children across the Atlantic to be reunited with their GI husbands. But the only way you were able to get off the ship upon arriving is if you were claimed by your husband. If you weren't claimed, you risked being deported back to your home country. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now perhaps we assume, kind of guess that the Lady in White is all the bad memories of all the women that were not claimed by their husband and were sent back to their home country. And she now roams the ship, dancing alone where music is played, from the hotel lobby to our ballrooms and even some of our restaurants. Now folks, please, right this way. We're now staying in third class. The stairs here have a very big design flaw. First being, they're pointed forward at a near 45-degree angle. When the Queen Mary was crossing the Atlantic, the waves can get as large as 60 feet. If you were the unlucky crew member walking up, you can go from a 45-degree angle to a near vertical, and all of a sudden the stairs drop dramatically beneath you as she's plowing across the Atlantic. And this often led to slips, trips, and falls, even one death. Back in the late 40s, an unknown passenger was found collapsed here on this landing of an unknown injury. He was pronounced dead shortly after. He probably fell from a head injury, heart attack, or something, which caused him to fall down the stairs during a rough crossing. Now he haunts the stair tower, known as the Man in Black. And it's not Johnny Cash. A few years ago, one of our tour guides was walking around here making sure these doors were open to the fire station and ensuring this area was ready for our guests to come through. Upon walking through that door sill right over there, he then realizes a shadow walking up. There was no sound or anything. He only saw a shadow, no bodily form. As he follows the body, kind of gets a good glimpse of it, walking up the stairwell, gets to the last landing, does a dramatic turn, and disappears. So later that day, he then walks into his manager's office and then asks what he just saw. The manager then told him he just met the Man in Black. So you too might get a good glimpse of him if you're taking a picture. Now another story takes place back in the late 90s, in one of our staterooms just right over here on the starboard side. One night, a pilot was actually staying on board for a layover, and he just decided to turn in early. He didn't think much of it, so he just went right back to bed, didn't care about the ghosts, he didn't believe in all that stuff. So as he's starting to doze off, starting to hear weird noises happening. He's hearing paper rustling along the desk. He opens his eyes and sees a gentleman looking and writing a letter. The gentleman looks over, goes back to writing, and disappears. Now the pilot thought he was just dreaming, so he just pulled over his blanket and went to bed. Later that night, he started hearing more noises coming from the bathroom this time. And again, he was a tired guy, so he just goes, "Morning," and went right back to bed. Upon waking up, he then realizes what was going on. The spirit of whoever was inside that room with him took all his toiletry bags and his luggage and went through everything in the bathroom, tossing into the toilets, the bathtubs, and the sink. Toiletry bag across the room. So I don't guess that guy had liked the roommate he had. Now, one question I get when guests stay on board the Queen Mary is, which rooms are haunted? My answer? It's a lottery. The entire ship is haunted. You might get one, you might not. You might catch a ghost, you might not. It's all a lottery. If they decide to show themselves to you, you're just one of the lucky ones. Now, folks, please, right this way. To tell you one of the Queen Mary's darkest days. Back in World War II, we were drafted by the British Admiral to be a troop ship, hospital ship in the POW transport. We carried nearly 1 million troops to the front lines, and it was said that Winston Churchill commended our service as well as the Queen Elizabeth, and had basically shortening the war by 2 years. On many voyages, we carried 4,000, 500, 6,000, and almost nearly 8,000 souls on a single voyage. This deck, along with every available space on the Queen Mary, was filled to the brim with troops, crossing the dangerous Atlantic at the mercy of German U-boats. Now, the Queen Mary had a specific order: don't stop, no matter what. We also were changing course every 15 minutes to dodge any incoming torpedoes that came from any German U-boats. On this unfaithful day, we were off the coast of Ireland. Queen Mary is escorted already by the Royal Navy, one ship in particular, which was the HMS Curacao, a small series-class cruiser, about 300 feet, and a crew of 340. Now, the Queen Mary's steaming at up near almost 38 miles per hour, changing course left and right every 15 minutes. These smaller ships were ordered to steer clear, make sure we didn't cut in front of the Queen Mary. Unfortunately at this moment, the Queen Mary turns abruptly to the starboard side with the Curacao off our starboard bow. We then noticed this Curacao was not speeding up or altering course. We were in a direct course to collide with them. The officer of the watch then signaled, out of the way, get out of the way, coming in. Unfortunately for the Curacao, this 81,000 gross ton liner cut the small cruiser in half like butter. Within 1 minute, both halves of the ship were engulfed in flames. And in 5 minutes, the entire ship was lost beneath the ocean, taking down nearly 330 souls. And unfortunately for the Queen Mary, we were still ordered not to stop under any circumstances. So it was the job of the other escort ships to pick up any survivors. Now this incident remained top secret for several years, 25 years in fact. Nowadays we do send paranormal investigators to actually go down into some of the lower spots of the ship, especially the bow and all their cargo holds, from B deck all the way down to go investigate and see any paranormal activity. They have reported the sounds of metal crashing and bending, water rushing in, and even the screams of help of all 300 sailors, reliving that unfaithful day nearly 75 years later. Now folks, take a few moments to look around, take a few pictures, take a good look at the scenic LA, Long Beach, and you might catch a glimpse and hear the Grand Prix going on. We'll be heading back inside shortly. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the life of a sailor is one of peril and danger. We run the risk of slip, trips, and falls, broken limbs, permanent injuries, and even death. Fortunately for this one engineer, back in 1965, he was one of the victims. In summer of 1965, we were engulfed in a very dense patch of fog around 3 in the morning. The captain ordered all watertight doors to be closed as a precaution in case we ran aground or collided with another ship in the dense fog. Now these watertight doors take less than a minute to close. 35 seconds to build up pressure in the motor, only 6 seconds to go from open to close, exerting nearly 700 pounds of pressure to give each compartment watertight integrity. About 3:55 a.m., the order is then given, and the captain and the chief mate are then seeing the lights up in the panel light up from red to green, indicating that all 38 doors were now closing, except for number 13, located back in the engine room in starboard prop shaft. It still stayed red. So the captain then called down to the chief engineer and said, "Go check. Make sure it's not a faulty wire. I want to make sure this door actually closed." About 5 minutes later, the bridge gets the call. It was no faulty wire, but one of their firemen was caught inside the door, arms pinned to his side facing aft. The circumstance of his death are still a mystery to us. There were no witnesses. But historians, paranormal investigators have all kind of concluded to 3 possible theories. The first one was he was playing a game of chicken, where he jumped through the door as it was closing to see how many times he can get through without getting caught. It's very unlikely, since no prudent sailor would do such a dumb and ignorant thing. Now the second one was he used the lever off over here to open the door to get through, to go reach for a tool he left behind. Now this one comes from the paranormal investigators, for when they go take their EVPs and gather any voices that come out, they usually hear, "Where's my wrench? Where's my hammer?" As if someone's still looking around for a missing tool. Now the third one's much more sinister. He joined the crew back in May of 1965. This was only his 10th voyage on board Queen Mary. During that same month he joined, there was a strike. The ship was not sailing. All sailors, all engineers were on strike to get better wages, better living conditions, and benefits. So perhaps this young guy crossed the picket line, and when they returned to work, the engineers would seek their revenge. Put him in the door as the doors were closing and just left the scene without saying anything. But unfortunately, no witnesses, no one came forward, so his death is still a mystery to us. Now later this year, when you do get the chance to walk around the ship on your self-guided tour, you are allowed to explore Engine Room 2. You too can pass through door 13, where it happened. Some of our guests who go through there for our engineering tours have all reported a weird feeling when they walk through. From someone staring at them, someone grabbing them, even someone grabbing their hair and pulling it. The more extreme cases, grease magically appearing on their cheeks or faces as someone just went around and just kind of grabbed their attention. On one of my tours, about 4 years ago, it was 2019, oh my god, it was like yesterday. In 2019, I was taking an engineering tour around there. The gentleman started feeling a cramping feeling on his ribs as the door was closing on him. He couldn't breathe, and when he took off his shirt to see if there was any marks, there were scratch marks all over his back. He didn't have those right before he walked the door. So if you do go down there later this year, you too might get to meet our ever-diligent engineer who's still on watch. He won't hurt you. He's probably just asking why you're in his workspace when you're not supposed to be there. Right this way, folks. Senior Second Officer William Stark is coming off his 12 to 4 watch, was invited by the staff captain to have a nice pre-dinner drink with a few other officers. So, he's the first one to arrive at the cabin. He's getting very thirsty, so then asks the steward where he can find a bottle of gin. The steward looks around the staff captain's room and no bottle. He walks over to the next room, which is the captain's cabin, opens the cabinet and finds a bottle marked gin. The steward didn't think much of it and just goes, "Gin, okay." Takes it back to Officer Stark. He pours himself a nice big gin and tonic, ready to just relax the night away before his watch later that night. But upon taking the first sip, he realized something wasn't right. It wasn't gin that he just drank, but carbon tetrachloride, which is a very strong cleaning agent we use to clean stains off our uniforms. So Officer Stark then kind of just laughed it off when the other officers arrived and said, "I think I just poisoned myself," and continued on with the night and went down to dinner. Upon the next morning, he was beyond well. He went down to the ship's hospital, vomiting and in agonizing pain. By the next morning, when they arrived in Southampton, he was pronounced dead. So every now and then, our guests who stay here late at night, especially in the hotel, when they're walking through the decks, because you do have free roam when you're staying on board, they've often seen uniformed men, looking kind of like myself, up in the bridge, standing at the wheel or looking out the windows. Some of these are just our old crew members who are coming back after they passed away to do one more watch on board their old favorite ship. One story that actually happened a few years ago was told to me last week by a guest. She actually got married here on board the Queen Mary several years ago. When she got lost looking for her hotel room, and she then sees a man in a uniform, a little bit different than mine, with gold bars. And he asked, "Hey, do you know where the lobby is?" And he goes, "Yeah, just that way down the hall." And she looks, and says, "Thank you." By the time she looked back, he was gone. So we think he was just helping our guests kind of get acquainted to the ship. Now folks, right this way. Acquainted with the ship and her paranormal history. For those who have all stayed on board, you probably know about one particular room known as B340, nicknamed the Haunted Room. Now the circumstances of why this room's haunted are still a mystery, mostly because the paperwork was lost after the gentleman died. But record goes, back in the early 50s, a gentleman was staying in B340 and died of an unknown cause. Name? Unknown. Now flash forward to the mid-60s, a young woman is staying in that exact same room. And as she's sleeping the night away, she then feels her covers being pulled off of her. She pulls them back up, goes back to bed. Sheets are then pulled back off. And then basically a tug of war ensues. Before she realizes she's alone. There shouldn't be anyone in that room because it's locked. So she opens her eyes to see a shadow of a gentleman standing over the bed looking down at her. She looks over to call the steward and screams, basically a loud enough scream that's heard down the passageway. And upon entry of the steward, he then tells her that in no time of night did a gentleman of that description walk in or out or near that passageway. So we think that was the first ever recorded haunting on board the ship, and that was during her service years, right before she retired. Now you two can stay in that room once we reopen the hotel later this year. The room goes for about $1,000 a night if you have a deep pocket and you want a nice spooky getaway from the hustle and bustle of Long Beach. The amenities are nice though. You get a nice queen bed, walk-in closet, a sofa, like a nice bath, a Ouija board, and some crystals. And you too might get a nice little haunting or spook. Now this room opened back in 2018 for our guests, and the first night we officially opened it for the public, the first group that were very endeavoring, very enthusiastic, they got here at 2 in the afternoon, ready to stay the entire night, and ghost! Left at 2 in the morning. They got so spooked that they just got up and left at 2 in the morning. So far, I haven't heard of anyone actually staying the entire night in that room because of the activity is just way too much for them to handle. Another story happens just after in the early, actually a few stories have all happened in that exact same room from the 1980s, 90s, and early 2000s. Back in the 80s, it was just a regular hotel room, not marketed as the ghost hotel, nothing like that. Our housekeepers would walk in and just make the bed. As they step out to grab the towels and the toiletries, they walk back in only to find out all the bed sheets, pillows. Everything in that room was then made a mess, and within a split second they were gone. This happened for several months, almost to a year before, to the point no one would go in that room by themselves. So we had to shut the room down, and that then became the accounting office. And I know, scary numbers. A few years passed with no incident, no activity, and this one unfaithful day, our accountant is walking into her office, papers in one hand, coffee in the other. She sets everything down, getting ready for a long day of work, before she then realized something wasn't right. She started hearing noise, papers are moving by themselves, and when she looks at one of the piles, papers moving left and right as if someone's just going through it, like reading each page and just disposing onto the floor. Before she kind of gets up to see what's going on, the mug at her desk flies across the room and breaks on the bulkhead. She then runs out, calls security for help. By the time security arrived, they both stepped into that room. Everything in her desk, all the paperwork, all the file cabinets were then open, and everything was thrown out of that room. And I'd like to point out, the portholes weren't open, so no simple breeze can do that much damage. So the room was then abandoned and sat dormant until 2018 when we reopened it for you guys. And every now and then we get the call, enough with the special effects, we get it. You're a haunted ghost, a haunted hotel. We don't have special effects. It all attributes to one death and a ghost named Walter, who haunts B340. So if you want to stay there later this year, you can. You're just going to have a very angry roommate. Folks, right this way. Folks, if you draw your attention to the elevators off to my right-hand side, to the ones the gentleman's climbing into, he's the focus of our next story.
Welcome aboard.
Good luck.
A few years ago, one of our attraction employees was making her way up to start her day early in the morning in a rush. She was running late. Now these doors are very reflective on the inside. As she walks in, she then sees a beautiful woman in a blue dress standing behind her. She kind of turned around to apologize for not introducing herself. The moment she turns around, there was no one there. So she kind of does the whole slow turn and looks at the reflection, and the woman's still there standing behind her. She was getting a little freaked out, so she kind of just waits for the door to arrive on her floor. And as the doors open, she then feels a cool breeze walk out behind her and through her. She quit shortly after. Now, the Queen Mary loses about 10 to 25 employees a year due to paranormal occurrences. Mostly are housekeepers and security guards. They're usually staying here late at night. It's most active since, ghost hours are from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. So they encounter and report to us a lot of the stories and encounters they've all experienced from the hotel, even to the main decks up above. Seeing shadows, hearing voices, or even just a tap on the shoulder to get their attention. Now folks, right behind me is our last story of the day. This is the first class pool, one of the most paranormal active locations on board the ship. The reason being, we have a vortex, which is basically the doorway between our world and their world, located just beneath my feet, one deck down in the changing rooms. We used to send paranormal investigators to go in there to go investigate and see what's all the voices or who's in there. And they've all kind of concentrated that there's a giant ball of energy right over here where all the ghosts come in for their nice little happy haunt stay. But there's one particular ghost who's very unique in that she's the most powerful and most vocal on board the ship. She's a little girl named Jackie. She's about 7 years old, often seen inside the pool. Now, rumors, if you go on Google and you might see on the internet a girl drowned or got murdered. No, there's none of that happened here on board the ship. So we don't know where she came from or how she manifests. I kind of think she was just the happy memories of every girl that sailed on board the Queen Mary manifested into one spirit. She's very playful. When we used to take our tours in here, our guests reported seeing shadows walking around the pillars on the lower level, as if she's trying to play hide and seek with you. For our investigators late at night, she'll just say hi, patty cake, and even peekaboo, trying to get your attention. But ever since we've closed the pool down for renovation for the past couple of years, she's upgraded her ticket. She's now seen throughout the ship. Early in the morning, during the day, and late at night. Jackie's also been seen off the ship in the White Dome right over there, which is now the Carnival Cruise Line. Well, back in the early 90s and late 80s, that was a museum that housed the Spruce Goose, this giant wooden airplane built by Howard Hughes, on display for our guests to see. This story comes from one of our security guards late at night as he's walking through that, making sure the space is closed off, lights are turned off. As he's looking around the plane, he then sees a little girl walking on the wing, on the edge, just kind of playing like tightrope. He then yells down at the kid to get off there, or she's gonna fall and get hurt. The little girl then responds, okay, jumps off, and upon landing, she disappears. Another instance with her was seen backing up in the promenade deck up in Chelsea's Chowder House around lunchtime. So, it's daytime. A family of four is checking in, and as they're speaking with the host and the mom and dad all then realize the daughter's talking to someone. It ain't her brother. She's talking off to the side to someone just off to her right, kind of just having a full-on conversation. They interrupt her and say, who are you talking to? And she goes, oh, it's my friend Jackie. She's going to be sitting with us today. The host just goes, that's creepy. So yes, Jackie has been seen all throughout the ship, and she's one of our most powerful, most vocal, and most engaging ghosts. It's even grabbing your hand as she's standing next to you and wants to follow you around. So if you do encounter a young girl walking around the ship later this year when you have full reign of the ship late at night, early in the morning, just say hi. All she wants to do is just play. She's not going to hurt you. She's not going to haunt you. She just wants a friend. Now folks, please take a few moments to look into this pool, take a few pictures. You might catch a shadow looking back at you. And if you see something in the mirror, it's just a reflection.
Thank you.
Of course. Just often the shadows, and when I'm down in the boiler rooms, I feel like someone's watching me. Like I told someone, when I used to do the engineering tours, I would walk right down down below by myself, make sure that's turned on. I also felt someone was watching me. What time are we opening the hotel?
Alright, you guys, so that is it for the ghost tour. Just to give you guys a little bit more information on the tour, it is a 60-minute tour and it takes you on different levels of the ship. And as you saw in my video, they talk about some of the most, I guess, known ghosts in the ship or to the guest. A lot of new information that I learned. Fun fact, when I was still in high school, I used to go to their official website, queenmary.com, and there used to be a live chat because they had a live webcam that was running 24/7 to the pool room, because the pool room is actually considered one of the most haunted locations on the ship. And so I remember in high school I would stay up late because I was a night owl, so I would go on the website and see if I could see anything. There was a chat and all that stuff, so it brought memories, and it was really fun to be able to walk right up to the swimming pool. Unfortunately, the swimming pool is under renovation, so they didn't allow us to go fully in, but we were like at the door of it. But it was still a great experience. So if you guys are in the LA County, Orange County area, make sure to visit the website. The tours resumed April 1st. Obviously with COVID, everything was closed for a couple years. Not all the tours are running. I know there is a overnight paranormal investigation tour that hasn't resumed, so I'm hoping when that comes back I can go ahead and do that. But we were told that the rooms are available to stay in May, sometime mid-May. So if you guys want to stay overnight, they do allow you to have free access to the ship. So if you stay overnight, you can go ahead and wander the ship on your own. You don't need a tour guide, or you don't need any of that. So we're trying to come back and do that. But again, this was amazing. Glad to be able to do something very spooky in my neighborhood for my birthday, and she is a beauty. Again, I would say if you guys like ghost, Google Queen Mary, and you'll find out so much history, so much history. It's crazy. Like, it took me a very long time to understand the full history of the Queen Mary, but it is considered the most haunted ship in the world. So I just want to close out this video by thanking my best friends for surprising me today with the best birthday gift here. But if you guys haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell for any notifications for future videos. And I also have Instagram, I have TikTok. I'll go ahead and link my names on there, my handle names, so go ahead and find me there. I have a few exciting trips coming up in the next couple of days that I can't wait to share with you guys. That wraps it up here at the city of Long Beach. Had an absolute blast, and that's all. So all right guys, stay spooky, happy Halloween.